record on the computer. Welcome, everyone. Greetings. This is our third of the presentations on stress management, and a number of the sisters were the ones who requested this as a topic. You know, every month we have that evaluation. And so this was one of the topics that came up from a number of sources. So today we have as our guest speaker, Sister Cathy Murray, who is going to share with us some expertise on the causes of stress in community. And since she's in community, she has an ability to speak about this. So Cathy, welcome. Glad that you're here.
Thank you very much, Michelle, for inviting me. And I'm grateful to share in this experience with all of you. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person. However, I do have your photos from your website up. So I'm connecting with you and Michelle as we talk about this, what we all struggle with, stress and stress in our living situation, stress in common, stress in community. And I want to give a disclaimer before I start. I'll actually share my screen at this point. That gotta find my PowerPoint first. There it is. Okay, get it up there. Can you see it?
I certainly can. It's not in presentation. Yep, there you go.
Okay. So this topic is a humbling topic. I struggle with stress, as most people do. I've certainly learned things from my experience. And I acknowledge that none of us do this perfectly. Even folks that look like they're totally at peace, there may be struggles with stress that we don't know about. I know what I can do today is share what's called my experience, strength, and hope. As a community member, I'm with the Dominican Sisters of San Rafael in California. We're right across from San Francisco, our community, and we've been here since 1850. I've lived in community for 30 years and in a variety of community situations. I'm also a licensed clinician, social worker, and I have been a member of Al-Anon family groups for over 30 years. Al-Anon is a group that deals with folks who have lived with others who are struggling with alcohol and offers many tips on how to deal with stress. As I'm sure you've heard, I know you've got some other presentations on stress, how to deal with stress, and you are probably hearing not all stress is bad. Right. We don't want a life without stress. It may sound attractive when we're stressed out, but if we didn't have stress, we wouldn't grow. Stress is part of how we grow up as children, achieving goals. It's how we grow deeper in relationships by experiencing stress, the stress of giving and receiving, the stress of moving through conflict, the stress of vulnerability. So yes, we want stress. Stress is a key part of life. On the social scene, stress calls us to advocate for change. So we meet the stress to move forward, hopefully, as a society. Also, some stress we're carrying perhaps through some trauma experienced earlier in life. And unfortunately, sometimes the emphasis in society can be to call that or refer to that only as a disorder. And it is true that there trauma can result in difficult problems, dealing with emotions or memories. At the same time, moving through that experience can lead to post-traumatic growth and resilience and be a source of energy and power moving into the future. So I included some photos of you in different settings from the yoga folks are not you. I got those, but even growing in yoga.
I wish.
can be stressful. Growing in anything we do to strengthen ourselves.
Hmm.
That's healthy stress. But I've got photos of you in different settings, working with children,
Sure.
someone who, a client who may be, or sister who may be recovering from an injury, a woman's group, healthcare, and looks like a conversation or community night or
Prayer.
prayer.
Yeah.
Uh, so just the stress of coming together, the stress of making time to come together is gift. This I found on the internet, kind of a question: is my stress too much, too low? It can be, excuse me, stress can be too low. This person looks like they can't get off the couch. Maybe they need to sit on
Mm.
the couch, but how long is on the couch? Is there no energy? Then it would be a time to see a physician or a mental health provider. Stress just right. Just enough stress that we're moving forward in our hopes and dreams, our lives, our relationships. And then, of course, on the right, my right, when is stress too high and we feel overwhelmed or tense or nervous? Stress in all groups can come from conflict, which is challenging and painful. The stress of, in this one, how do we balance the many aspects of our life? And ministry, community life, personal life, our family of origin, all those things that might be pulling on us. How do we keep it in balance? And then over here, stress that can be caused too much time on social media, or too much time, too many projects, and you're just totally wiped out, overwhelmed. So as we think about this, particularly not just stress in groups, but stress in religious life communities, sometimes we not only live together, we're also ministering together. We're spending a lot of time together. What can be some of those areas of stress? Sharing life and space.
Mhm.
Um, our space with each other, the amount of time with each other. But also, I know a big one, every house I've ever been in, how the kitchen is kept.
Yes.
What's on the food list? What kind of food are we going to get? It's going to be what I get, hope to get. That little struggles at times, but definitely the kitchen. And what about any personal stress I might be bringing that impacts the group? Sometimes we think the whole group is stressed out. It's a good question to ask. Is it the whole group, or is it me? And sometimes it is the whole group. Cultural differences can be a source of stress, especially if not discussed or worked through in terms of how we share space, how we share food, how we share prayer style. Country of origin can be a challenging difference for some. It could be regional differences. I know the United States is an enormous country. How we do things in California can be very different than how, let's say, we might do things in Florida or Ohio. The regional differences in all of our countries. Even in California, the state, there are differences between Northern and Southern California, between
Sure.
rural and urban.
Yes.
Generational differences. That's a big one. When those of us who've been in community for quite a while, are we willing to get a little updated by our younger sisters? Do they have anything that might help us do things differently? And similarly for younger members, what might I pick up from those sisters who came before us? Is time an issue? Punctuality? That can definitely be a cultural difference, depending on how we grew up, where we came from. In the United States, it can be a big issue. In certain other countries, it's the opposite. It's
Yeah.
not that big of a deal. But when people are living together and have different interpretations, that's where stress can come. Balancing our lives, our community life, personal life, prayer life, ministry, change. Change if someone new moves into the house. If we get it, some houses, if you even add a new piece of furniture, that can be upsetting.
Oh.
It depends. Some people welcome change depending on temperament. Some people really, it is hard and prefer little change. Again, that's different styles. Expectations can be very difficult in any group and in religious life. A lot of us who've entered religious life are idealistic. We can have high values, high standards, and we can have expectations that may be stated, that we expect things to be a certain way. We expect the kitchen to be a certain way. We expect the coffee to be weak and not strong.
Yeah.
That these little things can be what can cause some of the greatest intensity or difficulty. And then sometimes the expectations aren't stated. And those can be very challenging to deal with. Someone is disappointed or upset and we're not sure why. Some type of expectation may not have been met. Maybe
I
people
thought,
like, pardon?
yes, when people would say, well, I thought you would notice I was upset.
Right,
We are not mind readers, that kind of thing.
right. Reading minds goes right here. We are not mind readers. And I know the culture I come from, my grandparents, the Irish, were great at that, expecting people to read each other's mind. But when we're reading minds, we get it wrong probably
Yeah.
90% of the time.
Hmm.
Judgments, judgments are really challenging. And again, that kind of idealistic sense that brings us in. We have high standards about faith. We have high standards about social justice. We have high standards about many, many things. As sometimes, instead of just accepting that what someone says is just it's okay to be different, you can kind of tell you're making a judgment if there's a negative spin on it. Like, let's say we watched a film together and a person didn't like it. Instead of just realizing they didn't like the film, they make the person who chose it somehow not okay for choosing that film. Or how could anybody in their right mind like this film? There's this feeling of disapproval that comes along with judgment. And then personality conflicts can arise over a variety of things. It could be different temperaments. It could be different Myers-Briggs ways of operating. I'm sure most of
Yes.
you have had Myers-Briggs.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between introverts and extroverts. And instead of judging the other person to be bad or wrong, again, how do we deal with difference? Jealousy is a tough one. We're human beings. Jealousy slips in. It could be over people's accomplishments, over people's success. It could be over relationships. It could be over promotions. It could be over the garden. The garden's another area. Who gets to take care of the garden?
Yeah.
And if I want this planted, can it be planted there? So yeah, again, some of these areas of sharing space and life become very tricky. Opinions. opinions on many things, opinions on faith, opinions on prayer, opinions on politics.
Yeah.
So those personality conflicts hopefully aren't ongoing. Lots of times at the root of them, it's not that big of a deal. Authority, decision-making in the local community. How does that work out? Is it shared governance? Is it a moderator? Are people comfortable with decision-making? How are the decisions processed?
Hmm.
Living simply. People can have different ideas on that. Some people think no need, do not have any needs. Others can think just getting to that area of what is enough for our local community, and how can we have a free dialogue. That can be very, very hard. Maybe just take a moment and just pause and think.
Mm.
These are what I've listed when I reflected on it. Are there some areas that you're thinking of too that are stressful?
And that's halfway, 15.
Okay. Again, I mentioned different needs, and this is a little repetitive. I put shared leadership versus superior. Integrating new members into a local community is an important one. Whether a younger member or an older member, any member, is it truly a home for all of us? Do each of us really feel like we belong? And when I look at others, do I feel like everybody belongs? Is it truly a home? Or is it, yeah, how do we work that out? So toxic choices to handle stress. These choices end up increasing stress. Judgment, I mentioned earlier, somehow making the other person wrong. Gossip. That's a great way in the moment to let out some stressful energy, but it's really destructive, as most of us know. It can be even harder when we say we're only venting. Sometimes we need to vent. The challenge in this area is, are we venting all the time? Are we venting with 25 people? What is really helpful processing when we're struggling? Triangulation is 3. We all know that a triangle has 3. So I go and I talk to another sister. Next thing you know, 2 of us are thinking poorly of the sister I'm having a conflict with. So it's building an alliance. Repressing anger. I am angry, but it's not okay to feel anger. It is okay to feel anger. If you don't allow yourself to feel anger, it will leak out in other ways. Control. Control, I think, is in all groups of people. I think with women religious, it can come out in a variety of ways. Dominance in a house, that can be a way to reduce stress, but it causes more pain by not allowing conversations, by controlling a house. It can certainly cause folks to express the stress outside of the house, but through control. People won't feel free to deal with me if I'm controlling. So this is it's a way of dealing with stress, but it's also a way of causing more stress. Some people, kind of a codependent, I'm helping you out, trying to solve problems for people instead of letting the person figure it out on their own. I think anger itself, of course, isn't bad, but how do we express it? if you don't do what I want, I might insult you, not talk to you. That's a way of being controlling.
Mhm.
Reacting
Yes.
versus responding. Facial expressions. I'm really good at that one. I'm
Me too.
that I could, I wouldn't have to say anything and be all over my face, but it has an impact, as much as if I did say something. Aggression, rage, not being able, you feel the stress, and instead of getting some psychic space, lashing out at somebody else. Having a meltdown. Sometimes a meltdown, if you're really spent or tired, it's actually can relieve you a bit, but but again, how are you processing it? Passive aggression, it can be a way of reacting, where somehow you are not, you're not with the group, that you don't want to go along, and somehow you do it rather than directly. Taking things
Okay.
personally. Here I also
Hmm.
have the mind reading. Another,
Yeah.
some people, to deal with stress, avoid the situations, not address their needs, voice opinion, aren't home. Or if they are home, sometimes people develop an alternative community. It could be online, other friends, but avoiding community life. That can be a way of dealing with stress. It doesn't help the person or the community. Addictions, including the internet. So again, just a moment or two, what are unhealthy choices I have that relieve, that I choose to do to relieve stress in community? What are my go-tos?
Mm.
And there might be a couple. I know for myself, it's a daily challenge. How am I doing in this area? Some life-giving choices to deal with stress. I think one is, what's the value I'm operating out of? You know, in Buddhism, they talk about intention. What's the intention I bring? Is the value,
Hmm.
I said this earlier, is the value of the local community, that this is our home to all of us, and we are all adult women. Do we all belong, and do we all want each person to belong? I looked at your charism and call, got this off the website, but sometimes what are the values that guide me? And it's written beautifully. We are inspired by Mary, the mother of Jesus, and Saint Katharina Casper, our foundress, to listen prayerfully, live simply, and serve joyfully. When I'm stressed out, am I taking comfort in that vision of my community?
That's
Am,
really nice.
am I aligning myself with my values? And that can help me get out of the stressful spot. Compassion. The that what's causing me stress? Am I having compassion for myself if I'm overworking, or if my life's out of balance? How do I get in touch with that compassion for myself? Examination, am I balanced in my life? Or what pain might be coming to me through my ministry, or through my family life, or sisters? Have I lost the sister that I care about deeply recently? But where's that self-compassion that might be the origin of my stress? If I'm having a hard time in a personality conflict, am I having compassion for myself? At
Mm.
the same time, how do I have compassion when in my local community? Is the sister that maybe is in a bad mood all the time, is she having a difficult time for some reason? Is there something going on that I may not know about, and I just have to give a person the benefit of the doubt? Self-knowledge, self-awareness. Why am I doing what I do when I'm having a reaction to things that stress me out? What's the origin of it? Is it possible my shadow might be involved? The sister, let's say, everything she does is driving me up a tree. Is it possible there's something in her behavior I am doing too?
You know, Kathy, I think that word shadow and understanding the concept of shadow might be a little new. If you could say just a little bit more about that.
Sure. The shadow, and that could be a workshop. It's good to know. It's very good to learn about our shadow. It comes from psychology, and that there's the conscious part of ourself that we know, that we're in touch with, our gifts, our talents, our flaws, our shortcomings, all of who we are. But all of us have an unconscious part of ourselves that we don't realize, that we don't see. And as we move through life, we gain some more familiarity with it. And things become aware of it. And I can give an example. Some years ago, that I was very critical of other people for not living simply. Very critical. And I lived very, very austerely as best I could. And at one point I realized that even though I'm living the vow of poverty, I did have desires for simple things that I was not allowing myself. And so in my critiquing these other sisters and judging, I had to meet my shadow. I had to meet that person in myself that wanted some nice things. When I did that, it did not bother me so much that a sister wanted Raisin Bran instead of Cheerios. That so what am I critiquing in other? It could be something I'm doing. Sometimes, like if I have a hard time with a person who's terribly controlling, am I controlling in some way? And it may not be true. It may be I just have a hard time with a person who's controlling. But I think it's that self-honesty. Is it possible that what's bugging me so much is something I need to tend to in myself? Does that help?
Yes.
Okay, other
Thank you.
pathways to reduce stress. I think all of us, as best we can, have been encouraged to address conflict when possible. This too could be a great workshop.
Yes, yes, yes.
That and especially when things are small. But of course, when things are large. Meditation. Meditation is a pathway that I have really chosen to reduce stress, and it really has significantly reduced both worry and stress in my life. And physically, you may hear about that in some of your presentations, what it does to the body when you meditate regularly.
Sure.
Balance, part of our own self-examination, is my communal life in balance? Is our community together in balance? Sometimes the community, sometimes there's too many parties at that, or sometimes there's never any communal time at all, or
Too much structure, whatever.
right. Is it in balance? State needs when possible. If you're angry or feeling angry, what's behind the anger? It might be that you haven't stated your needs. I know one of our sisters recently moved in, and And she said very simply, she said, we're eating Anglo food all the time. People, you know, that she said, it's possible we could have something different. And that was really helpful to hear for the group. The could be prayers. I like to do something a little different in prayer. Check things out. Be careful of assumptions. This helps with mind reading. Instead of assuming what another person wants, or assuming that another person is thinking negative thoughts, check it out. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're worried about a family member. Acceptance. This goes along with judgment. It's the antidote to judgment. Acceptance of those who are different than me. I do not have to judge a person or make their choice out to be wrong. Now, clearly, if somebody's doing something, then we need to know ethically when people are doing something. I'm talking about in the day-to-day, or simple things, films, books, or if a person wants to go out, how to listen to ourselves. And then when not to sweat the small stuff. Sometimes the stress we're feeling might disappear overnight with a good night's sleep. How important is it what I'm stressing myself out about? Maybe have a mini meltdown and let go. Or go out and get an ice cream cone, or go for a walk. This is a line in Al-Anon that's very helpful. Keep the focus on myself. Instead of getting lost in fussing about another person, self-knowledge. Ask myself questions. Am I the only one impacted by this stress? Is the stress felt by the whole group? Can I identify my own triggers? Have I met my shadow? Can I dialogue about this? So self-knowledge is our best friend in dealing with stress. Now to kind of bring this to a close, I left 2 questions for you to talk about in your small groups. I wish I could be there and hear some of your responses, because again, this is kind of what I've experienced or witnessed in community, and some of my studies that I've been able to bring to bear on it, as well as other things I've learned along the way. But these 2 questions: can I distinguish between stress in community that is life-giving and healthy stress, and stress that de-energizes or negatively impacts community life? And the second question: what skills have helped me when I experience stress in groups?
Good questions.
Thank you.
That is great. Thank you, thank you, thank you,
My
Sister
pleasure.
Cathy, for sharing with us. You have a nice, gentle way of presenting, and also presenting where there is conflict and stress in community. And you do that very well.
Thank you.
So thank you for all those suggestions. Those are great ideas for each of us on how do we address stress in our lives. And, you know, we're all just, this is Earth. This is not heaven. This is Earth. And we have moments of heaven, that's for sure. But this is Earth, and we're all just human beings here, trying to make our way through and fumbling along the way. But when we've got really good ideas and really good presenters to help us move, we're all the better for it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And my prayers for your your workshops and all that everybody is doing to guide. I'm impressed by your schedule.
Yeah, thank you.
Presentations and What great work. What great inner work you're all doing.
Yes, it is the inner work. By the way, in April, we have a series on authority, power, and control. And when it's
Wow.
imposed upon us, and when it's our choice, and when we impose that on others, all that kind of inner work.
That
So
is
it's
great.
really it really dovetails with what you said. So that's great. Thank you, Cathy,
All
Sister
right.
Cathy.
Thank you.
And may your days be blessed. And that ends our session for today.